Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. We're live at the at Radio Row at Mandalay Bay. So I don't know. Could you hit a driver? Would it roll to hit Allegiant? I don't know. It feels kind of far, but kind of close. Anyway, Sam Monson joins us. Of course, he's the lead analyst for Pro Football Focus. That's at PFF if you want to tweet at him. Give me your thoughts on the matchup. Like, one of the things you guys do a great job of is the numbers. Like, do we have the two best football teams in the NFL?
I think so, probably. Baltimore was the only other one that you would say is in that conversation. We saw what happened, when the Chiefs played them. They justly took their place in the Super Bowl. So I think you have the 49ers, who have been the best team this season in the NFC, outside of a blip, midway through the year where they had that skid when they were without Deebo Samuel, without Trent Williams, two of their most important players. And then you have the Chiefs, who weren't really the Chiefs all the way through the regular season, but as soon as the big lights come on in the postseason, playoff Patrick Mahomes, playoff Travis Kelce, they're a different animal.
The Niners are interesting because, again, on paper, dominant team should be a dominant team. But if we're honest with ourselves and look, we get it. Playoffs a little bit different, come out a little bit tight. But, man, they needed a great fourth quarter to beat the Packers.
Yeah.
And, yes, the Packers beat the Cowboys the week before, but this is the same Packers that fired their defensive coordinator for a reason.
Right.
And one that Jordan Love had some great moments this year. He had some down ones too, and he's just starting his first year. It's not a perfect team by any accounts.
Sure.
So to struggle there, and then really they needed, I thought, some a little bit of clock mismanagement, game mismanagement errors from Detroit to come back and win that game. What's been missing with San Francisco from your perspective?
Yeah, it's funny. You can look at it two ways, right? You can say they needed a lot of help to win two games against teams that they should be beating based off what on paper says,
Sure.
All the numbers. The other way of looking at it is, look, Kyle Shanahan has this history of not winning those games, of getting into a hole, of never coming back in the fourth quarter, all these kinds of things. Those were two games that they don't win historically, and they managed to find a way of getting them both done. They get the comeback win against Green Bay, and then they get the huge comeback against Detroit. So I think psychologically it was quite important for the 49ers to find ways of winning those games. So if they do go 10 points down in the Super Bowl against Mahomes, they know they can at least do it. It's obviously it's Mahomes, it's the Chiefs, it's different, but they've got recent experience of coming back in those games. But they can't start as slowly as they've started the last couple of games. They need Brock Purdy to go back to being the guy he was in the regular season, as opposed to the version we've seen so far in limited sample size in the playoffs. He can't miss those throws. He can't have a bad first half. He needs to be on from the very first play of the very first drive in the first quarter.
So, look, there's this thing that we do with Brock Purdy, and I love it, but then I hate it. And I think, look, everybody loves the story.
Sure.
Right? The Mr. Relevant story. And I'm from Orange County. I live in Orange County. And for people who don't know, the whole Mr. Relevant thing is a creation of a group in Orange County that they've always taken whoever the last draft pick is. He has a golf tournament. They do funny stuff. They have a dinner, memorializing him and everything. So I think some of it is, if he was just a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick, it'd be a big story, but it wouldn't be as big.
Right.
Tony Romo was undrafted. Right? This guy at least was drafted. So some of it, I think, is a carryover of how good a story that feels. We love for people in power to be wrong about where they draft. For some reason, that feels good to us as human beings. We just do. You guys are all fucking idiots. You do it for a living, and here's this kid that played in the Big 12. Everybody saw it. You still all passed on him. But I think some of that has gotten into why we were at one point discussing him as the league MVP.
Right.
So I guess here's the question. Does he have the goods to win this game?
He does, yeah. I mean, I think we've seen that this season. The problem is there's no nuance in the world anymore, right?
No.
He's either Mr. Irrelevant, he's a fraud. We're seeing that now.
Or he's
he doesn't
or he's the
belong in
MVP.
Yeah, or he's the MVP. He's the next Joe Montana. He's the next Tom Brady.
Correct.
And the truth is always somewhere in the middle. He's capable of being as good a quarterback in this offense, which is a league-wide cheat code. We're seeing that, the top 3 guys in yards per attempt this year are all playing in a variant of this offense.
Correct.
It's the way you run offense in today's NFL. He might be the best quarterback that Shanahan has had in it since at least Matt Ryan was MVP, right? He's
Cousins, maybe? Well, it was Cousins. Cousins was that before that, right?
Yeah. So maybe the best quarterback he's had in it, and at the kind of level that Matt Ryan was reaching at the peak of this offense. But it doesn't mean he's going to be there all the time, and it doesn't mean he isn't also benefiting from the offense and from George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and all the rest of it, right? It's all of it together is what makes the offense so good when Brock Purdy is there, and where I think he brings something special to the table relative to some of these other quarterbacks in the system is his biggest strength is the late in the down improvisational stuff. The play's gone to hell. Brock Purdy will find a way of extending it and finding a play. So the Shanahan offense, the play design, the scheme, it's going to find open receivers left, right, and center. It's got answers for days. But when it runs out of answers, that's when Purdy's best asset takes over. So I think the sum of Purdy and Shanahan in this system is actually greater than either one of them just put together.
What about Pat Mahomes? How has he actually played? Because he was plagued by drops in the season. But one of the great things about the numbers you guys can do is you guys can eliminate, like, take away the drops.
Right.
And actually, were those the right read? Was it the right throw? What are your guys' data? What does it say about how Pat Mahomes has played?
He played really well in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, he's taken his game up a notch to another level again. And where he's changed is he's just stopped making mistakes. He was already maybe the best quarterback in the NFL at avoiding mistakes, and he's taken it to a completely different level again. He has so far 0 turnover-worthy plays in the playoffs, so it hasn't put the ball in harm's way at all.
Help us out. What's a turnover-worthy?
So, interceptions, they all go in the quarterback, whether they were the quarterback's fault or
I
not.
got it.
We are actually look at the throw and qualitatively decide, was that a good throw? Was it a bad throw? Was it dangerous? Was it safe? If you throw the ball at a cornerback, it's a turnover-worthy play whether or not he catches it or not, right? We're essentially quantifying those big glaring mistakes with the PFF grading. So he hasn't put the ball in harm's way once so far this postseason. He had the league's lowest rate of just negatively graded throws. So any play that's an error, you missed a guy by a yard. It's not a big play. It's not a glaring obvious problem, but it's a miss. He has the lowest league rate of those in the NFL, and he's changed that. He's gotten better by 4 percentage points in the postseason. So he's already the best in the league and has moved it on 4 points as well.
It's amazing stuff. What do you think happens in this game?
I think we saw this game already basically in the AFC Championship game. I think the 49ers are a great team. So were the Ravens. There's no reason at this point to doubt that playoff Mahomes, playoff Kelsey are not going to get it done. It's the best defense those guys have ever been paired with. And unless Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense has an outstanding game and is able to keep pace, I feel like the Chiefs win the game.
It's one of those things like, well, how could we ever bet against Pat Mahomes?
Certainly after seeing it twice now, right?
And
learn the lesson.
Well, yeah, and again, it's the point that you made, which is adjusting to what you have. Whereas in the past when they had Tyreek Hill, they had a cheat code.
Right.
And now when you don't have that cheat code outside of maybe Kelsey, right? Just play smart. Eventually you'll get some scores. You have a really good defense. Don't turn it over. Make them beat you, and they're not going to.
Yeah, and Mahomes is not like that. What we talked about with the lack of mistakes, he's not going to give you anything. He's not going to make it easy for you by doing something dumb, giving you a turnover, giving you a boost. You're going to have to do it by yourself.
I tend to agree with you. It's one of those things. We talked about at the start of the season. We're both Charger fans, and again, on paper, they're good. Until further notice, you're going to pick Kansas City to win that division because they just know how to win. Knowing how to win is the hardest thing to teach. It's the hardest thing to quantify, but the Chiefs know how to do it, and Mahomes has kind of mastered this thing a little bit.
And the glimmer of light all the way through the season was, this doesn't look, there's signs of weakness. This doesn't really look like the Chiefs' offense. They're making mistakes, and then they get to the playoffs, and they're like, all right, that's that done. Now we're going to go back to being the Chiefs.
For people who don't know about Pro Football Focus and all the things you guys have to offer, what should they know?
Yeah, we're an analytics company, right? But the thing that makes us unique is we watch and grade every single play, every single player, so we do things like turnover-worthy plays. We're trying to add this layer of context to just numbers and just box score data to really tell you what happened on a play, which helps predicting things, which helps quantifying how good players are, all that fun stuff.
I did say that was the last thing. I'm going to ask one last thing. People want to say that the reason – I love this. Anytime they disagree with somebody's decision to kick or go for it, they always say, well, it's analytics.
Right.
But my thing is, Detroit, he didn't one time mention analytics.
Right.
Right? Those are actually – what did the data say when they're up 20 what was it, 24-10? Did the analytics say he should have kicked the field goal or gone for it?
The analytics said the biggest fourth down mistake that Dan Campbell made in that game was before halftime when he took the points, as opposed to going for the touchdown.
That's interesting because, again, and I remember I was listening to the call on the Lions radio.
Right.
Watching the game and listening on the Lions radio. And the Lions radio is like, hey, in the playoffs, you got the lead, take the points. Take the points, which is why I thought you would have kicked the field goal in the second half, not in the first half.
The thing that makes it, it's always presented in a slightly dishonest way, right? Take the points. It's a really easy slogan. But this is a guy that was like 75% career from that kind of range, right? It's not a gimme. You're not just getting the points. You're getting the attempt at the points, which is maybe a 75% chance, maybe worse given pressure, playoffs, all those kinds of things. So the analytics is never a hard yes, hard no.
Right.
It's always there's an
percentage
edge to this side, right? It's a slightly better way of saying this is the way to go. Now, if you're Dan Campbell, you look at all the variables and you say, this guy's hurt, this guy's playing really well. You can change it. You say, I think there's
I don't
enough
think
reason.
he looked at any of that stuff.
Right. I mean, that's the thing.
I think he is just a gut feel sort of guy.
Sure.
But what's happened in sports is when somebody makes a decision and it's a decision we don't like, we always go, fucking analytics.
Yeah.
What do they know?
Those calls were close, even by the analytics.
They were?
Yeah.
What about the last drive was bizarre. I don't know why they ran the ball on third down, right? That was weird. And then, why? I didn't understand any of that, right? Just I thought that one you kick the field goal early, then you have the time and the timeouts. You got to get a stop anyway.
Yeah.
What did the data say, though, about the 24-10 going for it?
It was the
which way did it lean? I know it doesn't say.
It lent go for it on each one of those fourth down decisions, right? So they were close.
So if you look at analyst card, does it just say go for it every time?
No, that's the thing. But in those ones, they were all slight edges to going for it. But none of them, had they kicked the points on any of those attempts in the second half, the analytics community, I don't think would have been outcrying saying, that's an egregious call.
Do you guys have an analytics community group text?
Yeah, it's like a WhatsApp chat that we're all in. Yeah, we decide when to deploy. Get him.
I encourage you. Everybody says I love football. Well, I love football. All right, check out Pro Football Focus because if you don't follow it, if you're not, then you're faking it. That's really because I know all the NFL guys, they follow it, they use it, they have all that data, and they find it valuable. I think you will too. Really appreciate you joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Great work.